Today on Let's Wrap.
Finding what is working for you and doing more of that. If you change it and you frame it differently, it could be that you get there more successfully and stay there more successfully than the daunting resolution season.
It's 2022, a season of new beginnings. Our conversation with Darin Hollingsworth continues, carrying gratitude into the new year with good vibes for life and how to be intentional this year.
Happy New Year to all of our listeners. We want to welcome back Darin Hollingsworth. Great to see you here in 2022, Darin. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It is a great time to start new things, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, you steered us along here on the Let's Wrap podcast in helping us understand gratitude, how we can utilize it every day in our lives through Thanksgiving and through the holiday season in December. Now, as we're looking ahead at 2022, can you talk to us a little bit about how we should focus our intentions?
I am a big one to focus on just that word. What are your intentions and how are you developing those? A lot of my reference to that comes from the work of Dr. Wayne Dyer, who's no longer with us, but left an immense body of work in this area. And it is truly about more than just resolutions at the new year. We hear that and there's a good energy around that. And it is a good time to start new things if that's working for you. The nice thing about setting intentions, particularly the way he looks at them, is you're really looking at kind of the holistic set of what you're seeking to create in a longer term, not just starting over, but what you've already done and how you can move that along. So I think it's a great time because there is anybody in this first month of the year or so is thinking about it, whether they set resolutions or intentions or new beginnings or not.
What can we learn about maybe failed resolutions or short-term resolutions? I think we hear that after so much time, there's always a surge in gym memberships, and by March, the gym is empty again, or whatever the resolution might be. What can we learn from that to keep us so that we're intentional 365 days a year?
I say start with the attainable and the things that you're most passionate about. And that could be, for example, anyone who wants to start a meditation practice or a prayer practice or a quiet time, you may not be able to sit for 30 minutes the first time you decide to do that. Sit for 2, sit for 10. Start small, build a habit. We've talked about, Christine, gratitude as a habit and a practice. And I think intention setting and living into intention is a practice. So start small. One of the things I love to tell people is a lot of people have electric toothbrushes now. Those things are built with at least a 2-minute timer. When you're using that 2-minute timer, set the intention to think about every one of the teeth in your mouth. And I'm going to challenge your listeners to respond to the Let's Wrap website or comments in the YouTube channel or wherever with the number of teeth that they have in their head.
Wow.
Not looking on Google to see the number that most people are supposed to have, but set an intention for 2 minutes to figure out the number of teeth. We do it every day, multiple times a day, and many of us don't know how many teeth we have in our head. So it's a point of focus. It's getting present, right? It sounds silly, but I ask this question in seminars all the time, and you can tell people are counting with their tongue, and many of us as a kid, I had braces long before Invisalign. I had braces, but to have the braces, I had to have some teeth removed, and other teeth were crowding. So whatever we're born with, we don't always still have. And then those of us who are older may have had other damage or replacements or beautifications. So it's that start small, 2 minutes, you're already doing something, but don't be thinking about the rest of your to-do list. And circling back to something like working out, you can't do a 45-minute treadmill experience if you haven't been on one in a year. If the last time you did this was, and so yes, there's lots of in-home devices now that have great video and technology and can do multiple kinds of workouts. But start small, be full of grace with yourself, challenge yourself for sure, get into accountability with someone, and share the experience. I think a theme of a lot of our conversations have been sharing and
Yes.
share the experience. Intention setting can be very, very fortified by finding a connection to someone who may have a shared intention with you.
I love the toothbrush story. And how do we maybe stay consistent? Because I could see myself now, the next time I use my electric toothbrush, I'm gonna automatically be looking and counting my teeth. Then, 3 months later, 6 months later, we tend to revert back to our old habits or routines or whatever that might be.
What happens for me, and I'll tell you, I practice that almost every day. And if I'm getting distracted and trying to, hold my electric toothbrush with one thing and do something else on the countertop with another hand, it's just a reminder. It's like a muscle memory. No, I made an intention to give myself this 2 minutes for my dental health. Okay. And that is one aspect of health that's really quite important. Our mouths are where we take in water, where we take in nutrition. And when there is pain or disease that enters your body through your mouth, it can be devastating. There are people who have to take antibiotics before they go to the dentist because it's such an open, direct line to the bloodstream.
Yes.
So if we really practice it for a given period, it may not be that you count your teeth every day, but if you count your blessings about your health in association with your dental health, my dentists have told me that I also floss, and I'm not not doing a promo for the American Dental Association. I promise that my mouth is cleaner than a lot of people who have their teeth cleaned every 6 months, because I have set this intention. And I started this probably a year and a half ago. And it's like my self-compassion. If I haven't been able to meditate that day, it's my self-compassion. And starting with ourselves, the theme of a lot of this work is starting with yourself. You can't set intentions for somebody else. You can't be grateful for somebody else. We've talked about gratitude. You got to be grateful in your own realm, in the present moment. And that 2 minutes a day can start people getting really present to what they're doing in the moment.
I think I read something recently that talked about discipline versus motivation, and how discipline will get you much further, which I think kind of speaks to that issue. And motivation, I haven't done extensive research on it, but I feel like motivation is a feeling for a lot of people, and they just say, well, I'm just not motivated. But when that day you're not motivated, then I guess you need to reach in and find that discipline.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a blend there, and different people have different experiences of those two things, right? And finding what is working for you and doing more of that is the key to intention setting. There are 7 faces of intention that we look at. Among them are things we've talked about before: gratitude, abundance, expansion, love, kindness. And if we keep those values and virtues in front of us, so it's not just a resolution to lose weight, or a resolution to go to the gym more, or a resolution to be more disciplined in my academic credentials to make my job better. And for the people that HPC serves, for example, they have to set intentions around what their health allows them to do. So being gentle with themselves and setting things that are multifaceted. for their lives, so that it's achievable. I probably could have at one point in my life certainly been a certifiable achievement junkie, right? But it wasn't until I blended things in a way that benefited each other that made me more successful, right? In family time blended with work that I love, or a walk with a colleague for a meeting rather than just sitting in a conference room. When you can, when you're in a climate that you can, but being mindful of that, so important.
What can we learn from our many amazing HPC families when it comes to intention? Because so much of what they have to do is, is for the benefit of their loved one who it's a matter of, life and death, setting that intention in being disciplined in how you go through the treatment. And, maybe it's your diet or just the way you live your life to fight and stay healthy. What can we learn from those families?
I think from what I know about them, the children are the most resilient ones, and observing them and their ability to respond versus react to their situation, parents learning to do that with and for the children. Stepping back from the HPC family specifically, but I'm not a parent, so I'm not purporting to be, but I've observed a lot of people. I'm a curious person, and that's another part of the conversation around intention, is staying curious. But, you watch people whose kids take a little tumble, and it's the parents who are responsive that seem to have the calmest children. The parents who are reactive, like the child has been mortally wounded and they're going to suffer, the child seems to react based off the energy of the parent. So that's a classic example in the case of kids going through the wraparound program in HPC, is let's all respond to the needs of the patient, but not be reactive. And there's a big difference in that language, but also in the embracing that as a practice of language, so that you understand the distinction between the two.
We know that so much of the New Year's resolutions focus on health and wellness. Why should or should we not make a health resolution, or is that too broad?
Well, I don't like to make broad sweeping comments. Don't make resolutions. If they work for you, make them, right? If not, explore, stay curious about alternatives to the traditional methodology of resolutions. Writing things down, maybe holding yourself accountable, checking in, whatever works for you. I think health is the place we definitely should start. For me, I have had to make mental health a very conscious intention every day, really. And at times of reset. For example, another season of my life that I reset and set new intentions is my birthday. So people could, maybe if they're not in the mood on December 31st or January 1st to start something big or new, look toward the birthday and let that be your renewal time. I think the words we want to focus on are renewal, reset, intentions, and then self-compassion. Because I think you and I are talking about health, and in terms of our patients and the families for HPC, health is imperative, and they're in a conversation all the time. I think kind of the mainstream community thinks about health as fitness, physical fitness, maybe nutrition, but those of us who have dealt with other things, like in my case, mental health issues that can be chronic, or the chronic conditions that the children and families of HPC face, that is a different perspective of health. Therefore, we have to look at it with different language. If you're going through a season, and we've talked about this when we talked about gratitude, if you're going through a tough season, you may not be grateful for that. Just because it's December the 31st or January 1st may not mean that you're in a great season to reset or renew.
Right.
But if you change it and you frame it differently, it could be that you get there more successfully and stay there more successfully than the daunting resolution season.
Right.
Been my experience, and it's working for some people I know pretty well.
Well, and I think I'll speak for myself, my personal experience in I'm not big on making resolutions. I'll make goals and things like that, but not necessarily January 1. But I think finding the real reason and purpose on why you're doing something, even something like fitness, the reason working out may be important to me now is completely different than what it was, years ago. And so I think finding that key reason can maybe help you sustain it or stick with it a little more.
I love that. I think we've talked about Simon Sinek's work of find your why, and it's often applied in the business setting and branding setting. But I think for any intention that you set, any point of gratitude that you have, when you can go deeper and look at the why on the intention setting, which is almost more forward thinking, and the gratitude being more recent look back,
Yes.
knowing why for either of those, you're spot on. And I think it's much more productive to inquire further about that, about the why, than set a goal that you don't know or you're not informed about whether you can physically attain it or not.
And I think maybe there's sometimes pressure to set New Year's resolutions, or it's very commercialized, and so maybe sometimes people feel like they should, or I think it's a big conversation icebreaker. Oh, did you, and if someone says, "Did you set any resolutions?" and if you say no, that doesn't mean you're not necessarily being intentional in your life, or maybe you're already doing the things that some people are resolving to do in the new year.
Well, yes. And I think that when we're in those types of conversations, it drills down to what's working for you. If it's working for you, great. Share with me more about that. I want to stay curious about how and why that's working for you. But for me and other people, we just need a shift in language, in experience, and we each come at this work called life and work, by the way, from different approaches. And my goal for folks is to be able to translate life and work and blend them together in a way that lets what you're using that's working for you at home work for you at work, and vice versa. And what we've seen over the past year and a half, particularly of pandemica, is it's having to blend more. So they're seeing that more.
How can we maybe be better equipped to, I'm going to use a gymnast analogy, but to get back on the balance beam when we fall off? When you see an Olympic gymnast and they fall off, they get back up and sometimes finish that routine and nail the landing. How can we do that when we slip up and don't fulfill that intention? And I think for a lot of us, it's like, I fell off the beam, forget it. The whole routine is ruined.
And I'm walking away from the mat altogether. Boy, we've seen in the last year or so some real progress in allowing athletes to confront limitations.
Yes.
Because there just may be a limitation on a given day that today I can't get back on that beam for my mental health, physical health, or otherwise. But staying open to healing and being in community with people that can help you heal, acknowledging the limitation, and having the discipline. You've alluded to that and talked about it, but I think having discipline to know that you have to confront it. You have to confront failure and fear in a way that serves you and that moves you forward.
We look at the new year as a season of new beginnings. But I don't want to forget, our conversation started back in the fall with gratitude. So how do we sort of connect the dots from that gratitude, that season of gratitude, through the holidays and then into the new beginnings of a new year?
Well, in my practice and other people that I've coached through this work and studied, the new year gives us a lot to be grateful for, because we're less encumbered by some of the frenetic pace of the holidays, perhaps. In business, frequently, if they experience a calendar year end, there's an exhale in January that we can be grateful for. There is just winter hibernation that comes in different parts of the country more severely than in others, but just that lets us slow down and enjoy warmth in a way that we might not if in climates that are warm all the time. I'm not sure. I love seasons, but I think that that January gives a great time for reflection, a great time to share. We've talked about sharing a lot, warmth, and it may be physical warmth or emotional kindness or gratitude or compassion. And that is part of the cycle, is being able to bring all of those things back together into the forefront.
And we don't know what the future holds with COVID, but looking ahead, do you think that given what we've been through, the success of the vaccine and at least things have improved, that people are looking at 2022 in a very different way than a lot of other New Year's?
I would say there's a ton of hope. I'm going to dig my heels into hope for 2022, right? And continue to look for and find the things that lift me up in my little circle and sphere of the world, and in conversations like this that can ripple out. We've had a lot of great conversations about the way gratitude or kindness rocks or whatever can ripple from one person, and that can be one person making a difference in their own lives and in the lives of those around them. And I truly believe it ripples far beyond that. And 2022, I think, can be that for us.
Well, thank you so much for your insight, your inspiration. We hope everyone lives 2022 with intent and takes so many of these great tips and learnings and messaging from Darin and can apply them to their lives every day as we move forward.
So I would say to all of the listeners, not just Happy New Year, but Happy New Day.
That's awesome. Darin Hollingsworth, we thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
You've been listening to HPC's Let's Wrap, a podcast by HPC Specialty Infusion for patients and providers. We're proud to specialize in patient health and happiness at hpcspecialtypharmacy.com or call 1-800-757-9192.